ceramics is trendy, and there's this idea that, you know, something's trendy, eventually it'll disappear again, and then re-emerge. But I kind of have this feeling that, you know, as I guess even commercial galleries and biennales start to just incorporate ceramic, you know, practices that incorporate ceramic media into their programming, there'll just be an acceptance, you know, that what was traditionally this medium, you know, placed, you know, into this gutter, you know, can be considered like mainstream contemporary practice. I think lots of people have been, I guess, focused on my age a little bit, like, oh, you're so young and you have a show at the National Gallery. And I think what that is more reflective of is this idea that, I guess, the National Gallery presents art, I guess, from mid-career to established artists, and, you know, houses the National Collection, which has works, I guess, you know, that date from what, like 10,000 BC, you know, if you go into the ancient kind of artifacts. When you think about National Gallery, you want to kind of, I think about, you know, how can, I guess, a national institution reflect what's happening in the context of artistic practice on a national level. And I think engaging with, I don't really like the word emerging, but maybe early career artists is a good step to, I guess, solidify their engagement with contemporary practice. We discussed this project as a foyer project. So starting to think about, you know, what does a foyer mean, what does an entrance mean, how can you actually place work within a foyer in a meaningful context, but in a surprising way as well. But then I guess what happened is, as I tend to do, I just tend to get a little bit bigger and bigger, and the work just outgrew the foyer, so I had to find me a new space. What the National Gallery show allowed me to do is produce an exhibition of a scale that was unprecedented. Because of the space that was allocated, I could, you know, make these works that were like 5 meters tall. Contemporary ceramics is this big kind of hot topic at the moment, and lots of people are engaging with it. And it's kind of interesting though, because I guess traditionally ceramics at the NGA is kind of housed in decorative arts. It's like they're all the conservators, they're all the objects, they get treated by that department. But I guess what's interesting is that contemporary art as this field, you know, forces these institutions to redefine their structures, because I think it's really important to be non-medium specific when dealing with contemporary art. So I'm often pretty strategic in trying to not speak about myself as a medium specific artist, but at the same time, you know, understanding that I'm primarily working with this medium that's entrenched in these multiple histories. In Asia, particularly, they're a bit more accepting and open, I guess, to iterations of the medium, which you'd think it wasn't, because, you know, in Asia, it's the history of, you know, Japanese pottery and Asian pottery, and, you know, in the West especially, there are all these like white men and women who like fetishize these Asian pots and Asian techniques. But what you find is, like, I was in Korea and they're just totally clay literate. Like, they just know what you're doing, they know why. They might not like have seen it before, but they, I guess, can understand the medium and they've got an appreciation of it. And I think that's a cultural thing. The shows I've booked kind of overseas in the next couple of years are all within the Asia Pacific region. Which kind of tells me that they kind of get what I'm doing, it's placed within the right context. And what's interesting is, I don't know, it feels like there's no fetishization, you know, of the material, subject matter, or me. There's more of a literacy around the ideas, which is great, because I think within Australia, within our colonial history, we have this kind of Eurocentric attitude towards art, especially the way we teach art, you know, the way art theory is constructed as a discourse. So, you know, considering, you know, who our closest neighbours are and where we are geographically located, and, you know, this rise of the Asian economy, I think, you know, engaging with the Asia Pacific in the context of art is probably a really appropriate thing to do. It was one of the first kind of, I wouldn't say surveys, but I guess ceramic themed shows that in Australia, from the best of my knowledge, that actually, you know, grouped these artists working with the medium from a conceptual perspective. And it was kind of funny, because looking around, it was actually like, I felt like the most traditional, because I was working with this stuff, like everything was clay and glaze. stuff you could buy at a ceramic shop. What I was interested in is this idea of like performance and hyperbole and exaggeration. I guess taking the medium and placing it in this performative context. How can I exaggerate the clay? How can I exaggerate the glaze? And like for me, contemporary ceramics is using the contemporary materials available. It's like, why would I mix a clear glaze if I can buy one from Cesco for like $10? You know what I mean? And that's always reliable. So I guess, again, it's reflecting time and place. I think it caused a little bit of controversy when the 5 artists shortlisted, I guess, were engaging in the medium in ways that, I guess, reflected contemporary paradigms as opposed to, I guess, artisanal craft, one steeped in a tradition, around utilitarianism or decorative arts, and the pots that were presented weren't even engaging with the idea of pots, which I think is a more refreshing curatorial paradigm. I guess in contemporary practice the idea is that we're critical about everything, and putting pots on a pedestal needs to be questioned as much as putting elephant dung on a painting.